Welcome, everybody, to episode 265 of WordPress Weekly for Wednesday, March 1st, 2017. I'm your host, Jeff Chandler, joined by Marcus Couch. What's up, Marcus?
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. I think all the California rain is over. It's going to be back to 80 degrees this week, and I couldn't be happier.
Well, I'm thankful to be alive today.
What happened?
I woke up at 6 a.m. and looked at my phone, and there was a tornado warning issued for my area that was issued 20 minutes before I woke up. So, I went up, looked outside. There were still trees standing, and the car was still in the driveway. So I said, "Well, I guess I lived through this one." But that was interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. Once in Chicago, when my wife and I first got together, I got food poisoning, and she left me at home, and the tornado sirens were going off, literally going off. But I was so sick from food poisoning, I'm like, I don't care.
You're just going to stay in that spot.
I'm not getting up. If it wants to take me, go ahead.
Well, obviously it didn't take you. It had had other choices. So we got a pretty good show lined up for everybody today. Before we get into it, though, last week we introduced a new segment of the show called What's on WordPress.tv. And, what's cool about this is the WordPress.tv community, especially the volunteers that maintain it. They get very excited with the press, and they were gracious enough to send a shout out to us saying that they appreciate the new segment on our show. So that was cool.
Nice. We're gonna start. What are you drinking next?
Well, that's already been tried and done and over with. So
that's right.
It was about that. Yeah, not going to create any sound bites saying what you're sipping on.
No.
Boy, that's going back in the vault. So, who do we have on as our guest today, Mr. Marcus Couch?
It's Matt Medeiros, friend of the show, officially, I think now.
Oh, there we go. That's a nice title to have.
Yeah, and he is the co-founder of Slocum Studio, a company started in 2008 with his father, Mark. He's the host of Matt Report podcast, which is in its 4th season. And he created Plugin Toot, the plugin tutorial thing that he does on YouTube. And it's a site focused on, obviously, WordPress plugin tutorials. Thanks for joining us today, Matt.
Gentlemen, it's always a pleasure, and thanks for having me on the show.
Listen to that audio quality. That's how you know a man takes his podcasting seriously.
That is a podcaster with a mic, unlike the earbud interviews that we typically do.
Yeah. So is that the correct pronunciation? Plugin Toot, like plugin tutorial?
I don't know. I'm not a scholarly person here, but I always say plugin tut just because I say tutorial. I say tutorial, not tutorial. But hey, you can have it any way you want.
There we go. The next GIF debate. Yep. Tutorial. So yeah, great to have you on the show. I think the last time we had you on was our podcasting roundtable.
Yeah, years ago.
That's what it seems like to me.
What took you so long? Jeez.
You've got you're involved in many different things, many different projects. We mentioned a couple of them here with plugin tutorials, Slocum Studio. But what have you been up to?
Well, my son turned 8 months today.
Oh yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you. That has been the biggest piece of the pie in terms of my attention in the last probably 10 months to 12 months, waiting for him to arrive and then taking care of him and all that fun stuff over the last 8 months. But other than that, just work is going well. Got a lot of irons in the fire as I normally do. It's the only way I know how to do it. And to sort of bring clarity to that chaos, I recently launched a website called craftedbymatt.com, which highlights everything that I do. I think almost everything that I do. So yeah, that's my ever-growing list of things that I'm either making or providing as a service in and around the WordPress space.
So you're kind of like a digital hoarder right now at this point. You just need a new space to put all your stuff.
It feels like that, right? It's like I have so many websites. What was my solution to that? Get another website and put them all on there. So that's what I got.
So some people may recognize the plugin called Conductor, developed by you guys at Slocum Studio. And this show, we're going to just talk about we got a couple of questions, but we'll go wherever the conversation takes us. And but the Conductor plugin, what it does, it allows people to create and display blocks of WordPress content, which I think is interesting. So I wanted to get your thoughts on the direction and prototypes that have recently been published of Project Gutenberg, which is WordPress's new editor, and sort of this whole idea in general of, instead of having this WYSIWYG editor where content, you mix and match content, it's all this one big thing, this whole idea of content being blocks or Legos, and you just stack them one on top of another.
Yes, that is correct. I'm excited for it, right? The core's iteration on content blocks. It was one of those things where, funny, I was just getting off a call with a couple of other WordPress product guys that we meet every couple of weeks or so just to chat about business. And one of the biggest bets I made for Conductor 2.5 years ago was exactly what we're finally seeing now come out of Core. And Jeff, you and I maybe talked about this a long time ago, and even like the things that I've done with the Note plugin, that was all on a sort of gamble that, hey, maybe WordPress will be further along in the customizer. Maybe they will have these content blocks, or this, at least my thinking back then was WordPress has to keep up with sort of the Squarespaces and Wixes of the world, and now we're starting to see that sort of dream. Well, I don't know if it's a dream, but starting to see those thoughts come to life.
Starting to catch up in those areas, but boy, we still have a long way to go.
Exactly, yeah. So 2.5 years ago, I was thinking that was going to be the big thing. It's nice to see that it's finally coming to life, and happy to. Obviously with my plugin, hoping to get it compatible, right? And sort of work in the context of how WordPress wants to build these pages of blocks of content. That was always sort of our selling point, was we're not a page builder. We're trying to do things the quote unquote WordPress way. So excited to see that come to life, and maybe we can fit in there somehow.
Yeah, I haven't really engrossed myself with an editor. I read about WordPress every day. I spend most of my time in the editor, and the editor is, I think we've noted on the show before, WordPress is a 13-year-old software project, and the editor part of it, outside of some iterations, some removal and addition of buttons, it really hasn't changed that much. But now I'm really starting to see this. We look at Medium and some of these other sites where they kind of break up the content into these, I guess, more manageable blocks, and you have an image, its media is its own block, video is its own block, and then you have ways where you can move them up and down and structure your content the way you see fit. I'm still kind of curious as to how that process and workflow is going to resonate with me versus what I've been doing for the past 7 or 8 years now with WordPress's editor.
Sure, yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see. I would probably bet that that the editor as we know it will always exist for people who are going to just come in and do long form content and not worry about sort of maybe crafting a page look individual from the rest of the website. Putting blocks, right? It's sort of like this thing that I think we all sort of grow up learning how to do, right? How to like fit things in a square, in a square hole, in a circle, in a round hole, that kind of thing, and sort of building Legos and whatnot. Sort of this thing that we all sort of grow up with as a human being, and it just makes sense. It's just sort of this natural experience, and especially from the end user's perspective, a lot of people they don't get the concept of drafting a blog post and then hitting preview and sort of like, this is what it looks like on the front end. And then they go back to the editor and they sort of give a couple more, hit the return key a few more times just to give it a little bit more space. And then they preview again and like, it's just not working out right.
Oh, yeah, I'm ready for those days to be in the past.
Right. People want that kind of experience, and I'm glad that we're sort of moving there.
So let's say WordPress does go in this direction of creating a block type editor. I mean, there are other tools out there that have existed for a while. ASOP Story Engine was one of the first that I came across, originally founded and created by Nick Haskins, where it really allowed you to create these different, I guess, components or blocks of content to create a really rich experience. We have Conductor, and there's a couple of other sort of content builders, page builders out there. So if WordPress goes in this direction, we have something like this in Core. How do you think it will impact those players? You know, do you think it'll impact your business or?
I think for the, and I've openly talked about this and blogged about this, for my business, you know, Conductor was always sort of confused with being a page builder when in fact we built it as the anti-page builder at the time, right? At the time, like we're talking about displaying content, and a lot of people still don't get it because a lot of people don't understand content in a database, and you have blog posts, custom post types, WooCommerce products, and how do we query those and display those on a page or a post? People still think of it as a page builder, like, hey, let me make columns and let me type in text here and put a nice little graphic. No, it's much more about the stuff in your database and spitting it out for you in some kind of display fashion. Now, I think that I hate the word interesting, but you know, Beaver Builder is a great page builder. Site Origin with over, I think, 1 million plus actives. I think that's the number off the top of my head. Elementor's skyrocketing in terms of popularity.
I've heard a lot of word of mouth, good things about Elementor lately.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting when we see the content block building experience from Core come into play, because now you're sort of competing against those bigger players that are allowing you these, you know, bigger, better layout editors. So yeah, I mean, I can't predict it yet. It's just going to be real interesting. One of the things I've always sort of harped on is the split or the fragmentation of the WordPress experience with page builders. Especially if you look at a page builder like a Divi, which sort of consumes the overall look and feel of working within WordPress, both in the editor and the customizer. Like all of a sudden now when a new user reads the documentation of using the Gutenberg editor, and then they might have Divi on their site because maybe their consultant put it on there for them. And now they're like, well, wait, do I build blocks with this? Do I build blocks with the Gutenberg editor? Like why am I having to make these decisions? And no different if they're using a Beaver Builder. You're going in one place to edit your site, then maybe you're making your blog post in WordPress, but using the Gutenberg blocks and building content that way. That whole clashing of experiences, I think, is going to be the biggest battle that WordPress faces. Well, I shouldn't say the biggest battle because there's plenty of other stuff out there, but a big battle over the next year.
Where do you think the REST API is going to fall into play with that whole experience as well?
I don't know so much about the how that's going to impact like user experience. My feelings are with the REST API is that people will build solutions that no longer look like WordPress. Of course, we were saying that last year, and nothing has come into play. But it's just going to get more prominent the more that the project matures, both the REST API and WordPress. You know, it's going to be one of those things where people are building things on WordPress, and for better or worse, right? I mean, let me take a step back. For anybody who follows me, they know I have this conspiracy theory that one day you'll be able to go to like Theme Forest and download, you know, complete WordPress builds that are like, you know, little mini Rainmaker platforms that you can upload to your web host and run. Those are going to be like little, you know, baked WordPress installations that don't even look like WordPress, but are powered by it because of the REST API. And that's the sort of fragmentation that I think could potentially happen. Again, I mean, I don't know if that's going to be a bad thing. I don't know if it's going to be a good thing. But time will tell for sure for that context.
Have you built anything using the REST API yet?
We just some custom work for clients, just custom stuff that we're doing for clients. We actually just signed a contract a couple days ago or last week to use the REST API to connect to somebody else's API to exchange data and content, but nothing public facing.
Yeah, I think I used to work with this company on a consultant basis that does EDI, electronic data interchange. And that's huge when dealing with a major retailer like Costco or Walmart, and they require their data to be in specific database formats. And that EDI is kind of middleware. It's like the Zapier of e-commerce. And I'm wondering where the REST API can kind of mold and model itself based on, you know, the thumbprint, I guess, or the ID of whatever that particular vendor is going to be. So that's where I've been looking at the REST API, just from a commercial standpoint.
Yeah.
But there's a lot there. There's a lot to work with. And I think that, Jeff and I tease on this show that it's flying cars. We just keep waiting for it to come, but it never does.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's starting to come around. And I don't know if the learn deeply JavaScript mantra, if that's actually still in play, but there's certainly a lot to be looking at in terms of the REST API. And it's good to hear that you're getting some work because of that.
Yeah. And I think that's where the earliest opportunities lie right now is custom development, custom integrations, like you mentioned. But as it becomes more mature and WordPress sites are sort of all running it with all the content endpoints that people need. Of course, like 2 years ago when people started talking about that, it was like, oh, we're gonna have all these backends and it's gonna be this awesome admin refresh. And Jeff, I think you every year point to this
Yes.
annual dashboard kit that was highlighted on Behance or something like that. But that's such a huge undertaking that we'll get there. It's just a lot slower than we thought.
So I will say that back in, I think it was early January, on the Advanced WordPress Facebook group, a gentleman had published some screenshots and some work he was doing. He created an app called Desktop WP, and it was basically a JavaScript-powered application. I don't think it was using the REST API, but it was this JavaScript-powered application you could run on Windows, and you could do it was this desktop experience of running and managing a WordPress site, and it looked cool and it ran cool. It was fast. It was super fast. And you could do all these things like manage posts and write posts and create shortcuts and do all these things you can typically do on a Windows desktop. He was supposed to release it this month. I checked on it the other day. It's not released yet. And unfortunately, I can't really, I wrote this big review about it for the Tavern and ended up having to postpone publishing it because the gentleman wanted to dual license. The JavaScript was going to be under a different license versus the code, the PHP code or whatever, which I think was going to be GPL. And because it wasn't going to be 100% GPL, I wasn't able to write about it on the Tavern. But there already are sort of applications out there, few and far between, that kind of show what's possible between just JavaScript and some PHP code with WordPress itself. And I'm interested to see, what other examples come up maybe later this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're in the WordPress theme business as well as the plugin business with Slocum Themes. Baton is one of your themes. You've got a couple of others. And just what has it been like for you to be involved in the WordPress theme business?
Very difficult.
I'm not surprised by that answer.
I mean, I'm a unique case, right? Where a lot of people, you're either all in or not at all for most of the people that I know. I mean, I don't know many people who have a hybrid approach just because it is a difficult task, right? And what I mean by that is, a bulk of our business is service work. And then the other portions are divided up between plugin sales and theme sales. And themes have always been sort of a spin-off or a investment from what we do in the services world, and then bringing some of those, literally the code that we use, maybe some of the designs that we use and inspiration, especially for themes. It was always like this residual thing left over from a project. A client doesn't care if we use their designs or repurpose their designs, especially with our latest theme, Baton, where we built a lot of our recent sites on that sort of framework, if you will, and then bring that over to WordPress.org as a product that we think that we could serve, a larger audience with. It's also a great way to showcase some of our plugins, how it works. In terms of the business side of it, yeah, man, it's very difficult to compete with such a large and saturated market. It really takes on, it takes a lot of time to sort of do, outreach and, community growth and audience building around a theme. I'm lucky enough to do a WordPress podcast and YouTube channel where it's sort of, again, it's just another thing that I can sort of mention as I'm already creating other content. So I do benefit from that for sure. If I wasn't doing any of that stuff, oh man, the theme business would just be, it wouldn't even have existed as long as it has.
Where are you selling the themes? Just on the your website?
Just on my website. I don't do any theme forest or creative market. I tried creative market years ago, and yeah, it was just like absolutely nothing there. Never really interested in doing theme forest, just because that's like another sort of battle onto itself.
Yeah.
Just going through .org with the hopeful chance of an upsell.
So speaking of .org, some of your themes, like Baton, are that people can actually try them out for free. They're available on the WordPress.org theme directory. And over, I'd say, the past 1 or 2 years, there's been much discussion about the WordPress theme directory, and especially around the theme review guidelines and how long it takes to get a theme reviewed to eventually have it approved. Where, in fact, I just saw today somebody was mentioning the fact that they initially submitted their theme for review about a year ago, and it's just now kind of getting to the point where it's going to be approved, and they had to wait months just to get the first review. So what was your experience like going through the theme review process firsthand and getting Baton onto the WordPress.org theme directory?
Yeah, I mean, very much so. I mean, our Baton theme took 7 to 8 months to work through the system to finally get it out there. And we really sat down as a team and said, look, we're not interested in going the theme forest route or any other sort of marketplace route. We strictly want to be on .org. We tried going on .com, but I had to write like a haiku and do a video of myself doing it at the same time. So I was just, okay, I'm not gonna, like, what are we in elementary school? Like, if you're gonna be the marketplace or not. So I was like, we're just gonna be on .org and work it that way. But the experience with Baton has really just made us say, we're not gonna submit another theme.
Wow.
We're not going to take the time to build it up and do all the work around it and then wait and potentially get it approved in, like you said, a year. I mean, it's too much at this point. It's too much of a risk to take the time to do that. Because, again, it's not just developing the theme, it's creating the demo site, it's creating the documentation, getting the landing pages up for upsell. And, a lot of people say, well, so what, you're going to sell stuff. Yeah, but maybe not, right? There are plenty of themes a handful of our themes that have maybe sold, I don't know, 25 copies combined, and others that have sold hundreds, if not thousands, our most popular. And, it's just a big risk, and we're just not ready to take it anymore.
And the whole situation involving the theme directory is multifaceted, where, I mean, the people there, the admins, I mean, they're doing a good job. I mean, I agreed with a lot of what Brian Krausgaard said in its latest Post-Status Notes newsletter about the theme review directory, that it's a thankless job and it's tough, but you have all these different reviewers, and you have the guidelines, and you have the requirements, and you have all these other things that come into play that sort of tie up the review queue to where, it's taking months just to get somebody to give you your first review. And there's a lot of things underway right now with meetings involving Matt Mullenweg, and there's some technology things that have to go on behind the scenes. Like the most obvious example with the WordPress theme directory is the theme previews. So the screenshots, sometimes you'll see it makes the theme look awesome, but you hit the preview button and it looks nothing like what you see in the screenshot. So there's that issue. And then, there's the upselling, and then there's the demo content, all these other technical issues that are involved there as well. And I hope that some major progress can happen on that front, because it's really disappointing to hear you say that because of this process that you're not willing to go through that again with any other themes. And unfortunately, I think your sentiment is echoed by a lot of other theme authors as well. Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot to be said, which might come off as me just sort of whining, but I mean, I know, because I'm talking to a lot of other small time indie theme developers, people that don't have a big audience or a big list, or haven't been doing it for years. People who just are just trying to make it in the digital age, right? The blue collar digital worker, right? Who wants to just sell a product, do a darn good job putting it together, wants to provide good support, but they can't compete with, taking the time for that to get approved. But there are some things broken, which most notably for me anyway is the popular list on the .org repo. I mean, it's just not accurate. It's not a good representation of what's popular, because it is very much just sort of a download count kind of thing. And very, very obvious when you see themes, which right now in terms of this recording, Shapely, which was just released back on February 12th, right? And it's already the third most popular theme. I mean, this is 10,000 active installs right out of the gate. That's why is this already the most popular theme? I don't know. I'm sure it's because this theme already exists outside of the repo, and there might be 10,000 active installs of this theme in existence already. But this isn't the most popular theme on the repo. It's just not a good representation of somebody who's looking for the actual most popular themes that people are actually selecting and using through this marketplace, if you want to call it that. So there's a lot of competition. I get it. But it's very difficult for somebody who wants to just try to make a crack at this digital product thing. It's not easy.
I want to go back to that. You just mentioned something that I found very interesting. You said that they may have, I guess, not third party, but I mean other installs from a different sales process rather than the repo. How do they track that in terms of the installations then?
It's just the theme name. Okay. It's just the theme slug, your folder name. So, if you all of a sudden were selling themes on your own site and you had, 100,000 themes called Marcus installed across the web, and then all of a sudden you got your theme Marcus into WordPress.org, WordPress.org would reflect 100,000 installs and skyrocket you to the top. So, I mean, there are ways to sort of game that system, which.
Yeah. Note to self: make a 10,000 version of multi-site on one thing and install my theme there.
I mean, I've been told that those gaps are not open, but I mean, every day I see a new theme that's in like the third spot, and I don't know.
Yeah. So the fragility of using WordPress.org as a sort of baseline or jumping off point for upselling to a commercial product. Zero Flight, which was created by ThemeOwl, was suspended on the repo back in October 2016, which had to do with what they were doing. It was like something to do with the theme review guidelines for their uses of short codes, custom post types, et cetera, with switching themes. Has something to do with theme locking. But in the midst of being suspended for those 5 months, the company's revenue for that theme diminished by 50%. So instead of doing $120K a month, just because they were like one of those popular themes on the directory, they went down to $45K a month. That's a significant drop, and it kind of highlights all these issues of playing in a sandbox where you don't control the rules, and if you don't abide by the requirements, it could hit you in the pocketbook pretty good.
I mean, it's also great insight to collectively how much money actually passes through the WordPress.org repo.
Yes.
Not just in, obviously plugins, but with themes, with a lot of theme developers, I guess, and plugin developers being so transparent with their revenue. I mean, how important it is for these top spots to be available, because humans are lazy. What do they want? They say, I want the most popular theme. What is everyone else picking, right? So if they spend a couple seconds literally scrolling down to, for the first 20 or 30 themes or so, those are very, very lucrative positions to be in. And some of these things, I guess, if you do some detective work, could be just there because somebody's trying to make a quick buck versus, hundreds, if not thousands of other developers and designers who want to do it right. I've been saying for years, there's so much money there. I would love to see WordPress.org sort of tax us, right? Somehow, right? Somehow take a cut of this so that it could benefit the foundation. I know that will never, ever, 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 ever happen. That probably .com is going to be the first place where you see money pass through or Jetpack. But yeah, I mean, I'd be all in if there was a real representation of a paid marketplace here for sure.
So I want to get away from anything dealing with products here for a little bit. But in the beginning of the show, we mentioned that you had started your co-founder of Slocum Studio, and the other co-founder would be your father, Mark Medeiros. Are you still running the company alongside your father?
Yeah. Yep.
And can you describe what the experience has been like running a business with family involved, especially a father-son relationship? I imagine there's been some pain points along the way. And, what have you learned from this experience thus far that you could share with others?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Again, I'm in a unique position. We used to run a car dealership. So my grandfather, his father, started a car dealership. We were, I think, one of the first 10 Mazda dealerships back in the 70s, early 70s or so, or so the tale goes. And they started a dealership back then. My father has 3 other brothers, my uncles. So it was 4 sons and a father running a car dealership together. And then when I got of age to work, which in the family's eyes was about 9 years old, I started working at the dealership, pulling weeds, landscaping stuff, mulching the yard, that kind of thing. And sort of going from that to washing cars, delivering parts, working in the service department, to selling cars. And then when the consumer internet came around, I was the one that sort of managed the website, because that was a thing back then. I mean, it's an awesome experience. I mean, if anybody can do it, I obviously recommend doing it. There's definitely some times of strife with when you want to go one direction and the other wants to go the other, and it's not an employee versus employee or unknown. It's just a family. There's no other way to put it. It's a family member with another family member. So it can get rocky, but the biggest thing is, number one, your family, but number two, you can always sort of trust that person, right? So that's never really a factor, right? So even if there's a disagreement between co-founders in a family situation, at least in my experience, that co-founder is not going to lawyer up, right? And all of a sudden try to, sue you for a new position in the company or get rid of you, which I have personally experienced working at another company out of college, where it was 3 founders who were sort of just grew up as friends, but then it turned real ugly
yeah.
in terms of takeover and stuff like that. But we've been doing it. So, that is to say, long way of saying, like, I've been working with my father ever since I could work. So it's not a new venture for us. It's just a new type of sort of product and service that we're experiencing. But
what part of the business is he running?
So in terms of the service and products, let me take a step back. So in terms of service, I'll handle any kind of, real large technical integration or anything that is really technical, that I'm going to be the one that handles it in terms of scoping the project, selling the project, dealing with the client, and finding new business. He finds a lot of success with the small business market, right? Because he ran the business in our area for 40 plus years. He has a whole bunch of business contacts, way more than I do, in the local market. So he's helping them sort of set up websites, right? The small business website, the small business consulting, getting them online on the web. So that's sort of his portion of the business, his client portfolio. And then my client portfolio will be the sort of more advanced account.
Do you guys still find yourself using the car salesman tactics when it comes to negotiating with potential clients?
Yeah, absolutely. But they were never really like tactics or strategies, as a lot of people perceive them to be, like a high pressure environment. Again, yeah. Our family business started with my grandfather, and it was literally a family business. So all the family members worked there. Employees became family, people that worked for us for over 30 years before we sold the dealership. So they knew nothing but our family and working with us. And we only had one dealership, versus just up in Boston where, there's a franchise of maybe 50 dealerships and they don't care. It's just like, give me your keys. You're not leaving here. So it's very much about the customer. It's about great service first, and just listening to what they need versus just buy this car now, finance here.
So no
surprise.
like folding the magic piece of paper in half and
no
initial at the bottom and asking what it's going to take to drive it off the lot. That kind of thing.
Yeah, no Robert De Niro, walking around the car and trying to sell a Cadillac.
Here's a username and password. You could test drive our site.
Yeah.
There is a guy on YouTube named Steve Richards that is a trainer for car salesmen. And I'm sort of obsessed in watching his videos and how they work and trying to translate that into dealing with clients, but not so aggressively.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those businesses. Like I always said, if I ever wrote a real book one day, it would be everyone should be a car salesman, because it really teaches you about sort of body language and sympathy to the customer and growing thick skin and what to do in downtime. I mean, we're very dynamic with our business. And just as a quick little story, you come into the Thanksgiving and Christmas time, nobody's buying cars at that time. And we would spin up a little retail shop in the mall adjacent to our dealership and sold NASCAR memorabilia because we were a Chevrolet store. And people would, we'd sell thousands of dollars worth of NASCAR memorabilia as Christmas gifts over the holiday season, right? So very much like we know what the grind looks like. We know when we have to hustle to keep things afloat. And I mean, we did things like that where you don't see that too often.
Yeah, NASCAR stuff's hot. I know that for a fact, just from affiliate sales. So I can totally see that. Well, let me ask you something. In your business, if there were just somebody right now to show up with $1 million in a suitcase that wanted to invest in the business, what do you think you'd use that money for?
Man, that's a pretty big question. I don't know if I would go after something directly in the WordPress space. I mean, of course I would probably use a fraction of that to sort of invest in the stuff that we're doing with Conductor, because we have some pretty big plans for that. But I'm of this thing where I really want tech education in the local space to be more prominent than it is. I would probably look to using that kind of money to educate people who are maybe exiting a traditional workforce and getting them sort of taught in the digital workforce, in communities that need it. There's probably 1 million different nonprofits that do that, but I would definitely like to see something in my area because I know nothing that exists like that. So that's probably what I do.
All right. Now let me flip
probably an ever-growing pressing need as well.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Let me flip that around. Let's say instead of $1 million, the guy brings 3 employees and says, I'll pay their salary for 2 years.
Then
what are you going to have them do?
Then I put them full force on Conductor.
Yeah, that's it, huh? You just want developers, right?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. For sure. That's exactly what I would do. Then I would invest it into the product.
So that's a good lesson for all the rest of the developers that are out there that are worried about social media presence and all the rest of it. It's really about the product. It's not about the fluff.
Yeah. You mean in terms of making sales or getting found?
I've noticed that a couple developers that I talk to on Twitter, they get all stressed out about promoting the product and marketing the product, and they get so focused on all of that, and then their product ends up, sucking because they were too invested in the other things and not a product. Yeah,
I mean, I'm biased because I do spend a lot of time promoting or being in front of people, be it audio or video, and on Twitter. So I would say to that developer, if she's sitting down building her product, I would definitely say, focus on a product that you can manage both, right? Can you create a product where 50% of your time you're actually building the product. And 50% of the time, you're building awareness around that. Be it, be it on social, be it on a blog post, be it on a tutorial channel or tutorial videos about your product. I would definitely say that is very important in terms of sustaining the business, because again, just because you built it doesn't mean people will be able to find it. And there has to be a little bit of, and again, this is pulling from my car days. There has to be a little bit of ego there where you can go head to head with another product and reasonably tell somebody why they should buy from you, because that confidence factor is a huge thing. Even if you go feature for feature, but you're sort of shy or sheepish about it, you want to have some confidence that people are making the right choice in your product. So I'd say I'd split it down the middle 50-50 if I could.
Okay. Now we're going to go with the third wish from this magical genie. If this genie then just pulled out the WordPress magic wand and said, you can change one thing in WordPress right now, what's that going to be?
Oh boy. Oh man. I mean, could it be
just one?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one.
I'll give you mine. Media library.
I knew that one was coming.
Okay. That's mine. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. Media library. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, whew. Does it have it's just in the software? Just in the WordPress software?
Yes.
I would say speed improvement in the customizer.
All right, I'm with you in there.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
I would, and this is something that Weston brought up when we had him on the show, when we exclusively talked about the customizer. Him and Nick were on, and getting the customizer to a point where, when you click customize, we're not sitting around waiting for the customizer interface to load and for you're waiting for things to happen, but instead you click customize and you can go right to the editing process where it's more like an application versus what it is now. And that's the change. That would be a significant user experience change in my book and make it a lot better to use.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess another nice to have I might do is like multiple plugin installation at one time. So I could, upload 5 plugins at one time. Granted that my uploading size was enough on the server, but be able to install multiple plugins at once is something I kind of always wished I could do.
So you briefly you mentioned something about books. If you could write a book, are you in the midst of writing any books?
What Maybe a segue, Jeff! You can head over to thepodcastbook.com. So the podcast book is a co-authored effort between myself and Joe Casabona, and it was one of those things where we were like, well, he does a show with me, Plugged In Radio, which is our live show on the YouTube channel, and we're like, hey, we should really have a resource that we could offer up to people who want to start a podcast. And he gets those questions all the time. I'm sure you guys get those questions all the time. So we authored an 88-page or 85-page question and answer book, sort of like a choose your own adventure, getting 2 brains for the price of 1. And it was fun to put together. And yeah, it's a great little sort of cornerstone piece to when people ask us.
So podcasting has been around for a while. I mean, the Leo Laporte days. I mean, Marcus was pretty much there on the ground floor.
Yeah, I started in December 2004.
Yeah, wow. in the beginning of podcasting. So it's been around for almost 2 decades now. And you do a number of podcasts yourself. You have a number of episodes, season 4 now on the Matt Report. What do you think of podcasting? What do you think of the medium itself? What do you like about it?
Well, I mean, I think it's probably the most intimate, engaging piece of content that people can put out. But I would like to preface it with, people who might be thinking about podcasting, you really have to get away from the challenges of the word. I mean, I know a lot of people in this space are much more developer and tech centric, so they kind of get it. But when I talk to other businesses that would really benefit from this kind of content, they can't get over the word podcast, right? It's like the word blog, blog. Like they feel like it's like this techie thing that people have to do. If you can really distill it down to content creation and to answer Marcus's, or to piggyback off of the answer I gave Marcus before about the developer who's trying to get known, podcast doesn't have to be this hour-long audio format. It doesn't have to be a half an hour. It could be a 1-minute Instagram story. The idea is you're creating audio, or you're creating visual content or audio content where it's on a consistent basis, you're connecting with an audience and you're showcasing whatever it is. It's your cause of your organization or it's your product. And it can come in 8-second clips every day, couple minutes every week, or 45 minutes, every couple weeks.
Yeah. I mean, there's no set standard. It's
right.
Whatever you feel most comfortable with.
Exactly. And that's what I really love about it is a creative side to it. And you can really let that stuff shine because you don't have to follow a rule book. The only book you need to follow is thepodcastbook.com, and that will show you
nice
you need.
Nice bonus points for that. What I like most about the medium is being able to, I write for a living, but having a medium where people can hear emotion. It's hard to convey emotion into text, and what this medium does, it allows me to say things that are on my mind, and people can hear emotion. They can hear whether I'm excited about a particular thing or if I'm upset about a particular thing. And it also allows me a unique opportunity for people to hear my voice. So there's a voice behind the words that maybe they read on the site. And I'm just grateful that there are a lot of people out there who have listened to this show over the years. And it's always great to go to a WordCamp or something and say, yeah, I really appreciate what you guys do. And there are a lot of people out there who rely on us for the news, and it's just kind of a cool, unique medium. It's just something different out of all the text I write every week.
Yeah, emotion is the perfect word for it, right? And you can really convey that, and that's the best part about it.
So we got one more question for you, and are there any trends in the WordPress ecosystem that you're paying special attention to?
I would say the trend would be consolidation. Either, somebody, sort of taking in and getting other products, right, of similar caliber, right? Maybe purchasing other plugins, buying out other maybe theme providers, stuff like that. And to a degree, and I don't know if this really falls under consolidation, but really starting to, and this is just from the business owner's perspective, I guess I should say, in products, really starting to take notice of maybe I won't be sharing the piece of the pie with my friend who makes another plugin that's sort of similar to us. Maybe we'll do that same kind of feature. I'm really starting to see the total ownership of an end user start to be much more prominent. And I think we're actually seeing Automatic and WordPress move in this direction where, that Jetpack, it does a lot. It's a great plugin. Maybe you don't need Yoast SEO anymore, right? Maybe you don't need the Tweet This Evergreen plugin or whatever the name of it is, because we have those features built in. I'm starting to see that sort of, consolidation of the customer, consolidation of your products and services available to a one-stop shop kind of thing. Very, very, very early days, but I'm starting to see it more and more.
Yeah, and how about all these web hosting companies these days like GoDaddy, and now you have, StudioPress is doing their thing with StudioPress sites.
There you go.
They're
That's
creating
perfect.
It's all really from the customer, from the theme, a couple plugins, the hosting. Let's just house it all. We'll take care of all of it for you. And then on top of that, GoDaddy has all these other services you can tap into if you want.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, because it saves, not only does it increase their revenue because they have another maybe offering that they can offer them, but it's going to bring down their support load because they're not going to be going to 17 different places to get everything. They're going to know what the customer has and not, again, have that fragmentation that I'm so worried about over the next few years. It's just, I think that's where it's all going.
Well, any last questions, Marcus, for Matt before we let him go?
Yeah, what podcasts are you listening to?
Oh, that's a great question. My favorite, I will say this. I have every WordPress podcast that I know of in my playlist because I need to listen to my competition. Okay.
Right.
I might listen to you guys on 2x speed, but I listen.
You wouldn't be the only one.
But my favorite podcast actually is by Mitch Joel, the 6 Pixels of Separation Now, a Mirum podcast. Love that. I mean, that to me, that's the most, I don't want to say underrated because I know, how these things sort of work. It's a roller coaster ride of ratings, but he's on 500 plus episodes, and I just love every episode he puts out.
Yeah, he's been doing it a long time, just as long as I have.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah, and how about these people with their best WordPress podcasts out there, and some of them don't even have recent episodes?
That drives me crazy.
Oh,
it drives me crazy. Like, do a little bit of research. Just click on the link that you found in iTunes. I mean, you don't even have to click on the link. Just look at what the last episode was, right? It says March 2013. Oh, here we go. It's a great one,
I know all of us podcast doers kind of get a chuckle out of that when we see those.
Yeah.
Oh man, so it was great having you on the show, Matt. Enjoyed our conversation. We covered quite the gamut here of information regarding running the business and what's going on over there at Slocum Studios. So how can people stay in touch with you and stalk you on the interwebs?
Twitter's best place, at Matt Medeiros. And if you want all the links we talked about, it's craftedbymatt.com.
All right, that'll come in handy for me when I do the show notes.
Yeah.
that website. So, Matt, take care. All the best. Can't wait to see what you got cooking with Conductor, and take care, man.
Thanks, man.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Matt Medeiros. Pretty cool guy. Had a good time with him at WordCamp US last year. Always a good time with Matt. So before we get into the plugin picks of the week, I did want to mention that there was a critical security vulnerability news published earlier this week with Next Gen Gallery.
Again?
What do you mean again?
This plugin has been plagued for years.
Well, I don't know. It's just code. I don't know. I can't really comment on that. But Securi, a researcher over at Securi, found a SQL injection vulnerability in Next Gen Gallery, and this plugin is active on more than about 1.5 million sites, according to the WordPress plugin directory. And Securi gives it a vulnerability dread score, which is just a really cool acronym in and of itself, a 9 out of 10. So it's a pretty severe vulnerability. Now you're going to have to upgrade to version 2.1.79, which was released to the directory 5 or 6 days ago. And even though the changelog at the time of writing this article did not say anything about a security vulnerability being fixed, that version does patch it. And Eric Danzer, who is the CEO and founder of Imagely, which are the makers of Next Gen Gallery, he actually published a tweet that said the reason why that information is not in the changelog is that they wanted the updates underway before drawing attention to it, and that they will update the changelog for accuracy and a subsequent release. So there you have it. So if you're running Next Gen Gallery, please upgrade to the latest version to protect your site from this security vulnerability, which is pretty severe.
Yes.
Other than that, there's the Amazon S3 outage yesterday. That was interesting. On the East Coast, we found out all the weird little things that use Amazon S3. We might talk more about that next week. Freemius Insights. They have launched their Insights analytical service for WordPress themes. And next week is going to be a news show, but I want to talk about next week some of the additional data that Vova Feldman, the founder of Freemius, shared with me, that I wrote in the tavern, because I found it really interesting. One of the most interesting data points is that they've been using Freemius. He's had Freemius available for plugins for more than a year now. And so we shared data from all the aggregated data from all the plugins that are being tracked. And one of the cool things about Freemius is it gives users an opportunity to provide feedback for why they're uninstalling a plugin. And there are these different responses that are randomized that people can select as the reasons. And out of the top 5 reasons, there's 114,000 feedback responses. And out of the top 5 reasons, the second most popular one at 21%, the reason was didn't understand how it works. And this is something I kind of want to talk about in more detail next week, is I think it's a pretty common problem amongst plugins in general, where users will install a plugin and they won't have any idea what to do next. And I think that's a common problem. We'll talk more about that next week. So With that said, those are some of the headlines you need to be aware of. And Marcus, what do we got for your picks of the week?
Really nice ones this week. First one is called WooCommerce Simple Ads Server. It lets you create ads and campaigns for your WooCommerce products and have the ability to embed that in other websites. So what it does is it lists out all of your WooCommerce products on the back end, and then you can assign different banners for each product. And then it provides all the scripts and embed codes for yourself or anybody else who would like to put them into an ad server. Pretty cool plugin called WooCommerce Simple Ads Server. And the next one is WP Keyword Monitor. And if you are using Google Analytics to track and you'd like to use a plugin that will tell you where your organic rankings are, this plugin will do it. You can track up to 100 keywords per day, and it gives you full reports, a nice little running graph over time of your rankings and statistics. Pretty cool plugin to check out, WP Keyword Monitor. And finally, it's a plugin called Private Uploads. And this is very interesting because it protects all of your sensitive uploaded files so that only logged in users can access them. And this is really nice because that means people can't just go into your domain content folder like anybody typically can and look at all of your different private files. So what it does is it configures the web server to first ask WordPress if the person is logged in and they have the appropriate access levels. And then WordPress authenticates that access and shows that file. So it's pretty efficient, and it's a lot better than similar kinds of plugins because it only runs when it's serving those private files and folders. So check that one out. It's called Private Uploads, and those are my plugin picks of the week.
Fantastic. So that's going to do it for this episode of WordPress Weekly. You can find show notes for this episode and all other episodes on www.tavern.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jeffro, JEFFR0. And Marcus?
You can find me at my website, marcuscouch.com, and on Twitter at marcuscouch.
Until next week, everybody have a safe, enjoyable weekend. I know I will. And we'll talk to you again next Wednesday afternoon. Take care, everybody.